Story 1. The Snowbound Stranger. It was the middle of January, the kind of bitter cold that makes your teeth ache if you breathe too deep. I was 21 at the time, driving home from visiting my parents. They lived a few towns over, and I had left later than I should have. The sky was already dark, and a heavy snowstorm had rolled in faster than I expected. The roads were almost completely empty. Snowflakes whipped across my windshield like static, and even with the wipers on full blast, I could barely see more than 20 feet ahead. The tires crunched over the icy pavement, and every sharp turn of the wheel made me nervous that I had skidded out. There's something deeply unsettling about driving alone in a snowstorm at night. The world outside the headlights feels swallowed by blackness, and the silence inside the car seems too loud. Every now and then, I'd see a set of headlights far in the distance, but otherwise, it felt like I was the only person left in the world. About halfway through my trip, I noticed something up ahead. Through the white haze of the falling snow, I made out the shape of a car pulled off to the side of the road, hazard lights blinking dimly. I slowed down, my first thought being maybe someone had slid off the road. As I crept closer, I saw a figure standing near the car. A tall man, bundled in a heavy coat and scarf, waving one arm weakly as if trying to get someone's attention. I debated for a second whether I should stop. The storm was getting worse, and every part of me wanted to just keep driving and get home. But something about leaving someone stranded out here in that weather didn't sit right with me. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled the window down a crack. "Hey, do you need help?" I called out, my voice muffled by the hiss of snow hitting the glass. The man stepped closer. His face was partially obscured by the scarf pulled up under his eyes, and his hood was low. I could see only pale skin and dark, tired eyes staring at me. "My car died," he said, his voice raspy, almost like he hadn't spoken in hours. "Batteries dead. I've been out here for a while." I hesitated. Something about his tone felt off, though I couldn't place it. But it was freezing, and the idea of him standing out there all night seemed cruel. "Do you want me to call a tow for you?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "No service. I've been trying. Please, just a ride. It's to town." There was a long pause where I debated. Letting a complete stranger into my car in the middle of nowhere went against every instinct I had. But leaving him there to possibly freeze, that guilt would eat at me. So, against my gut feeling, I unlocked the passenger door. Into town. He climbed in, moving stiffly, and shut the door with a quiet thud. The cold seemed to follow him in, making the air in the car drop instantly. He smelled faintly of smoke and something metallic, like old pennies. "Thanks," he muttered, settling into the seat. He didn't look at me. I nodded and pulled back onto the road. The snowstorm had gotten worse, and I drove slower now, gripping the wheel tightly. The man just sat there, breathing heavily, his hands clasped in his lap. At first, I tried to make small talk. "Rough night to be driving. Where were you headed?" He turned his head slowly, those dark eyes catching mine for a split second before looking back out the windshield. "Nowhere in particular." I laughed nervously. Fair enough. After that, the car was silent, except for the howl of wind and the groan of the heater. I kept sneaking glances at him. Something about the way he sat so still, barely moving, made the hairs on my arms stand up. At one point, I noticed his hands. His gloves were thin, and his fingers were trembling slightly, but not from the cold. It was more like a subtle, restless shake. We drove for another 10 minutes before he finally spoke again. You drive this road often? Sometimes, I said cautiously. Why? He paused, just wondering. Not many cars out tonight. I swallowed. The way he said it made it sound less like an observation and more like a statement of fact. Like he was glad there weren't many cars out. The snow thickened, and soon I could barely see the road. I slowed down to a crawl, heart pounding. And that's when he said something that made my blood run cold. We shouldn't have stopped. I felt every muscle in my body tense. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, and I forced out a laugh, pretending I hadn't heard him correctly. What's that? He turned his head toward me. Okay. His scarf had slipped slightly, and for the first time, I saw his mouth, a thin, unsettling smile creeping across it. You shouldn't have stopped for me. My stomach dropped. My brain went into overdrive, thinking of every way to get out of this. The snowstorm was too thick to just slam the brakes and kick him out. I had no phone service. I was miles from the nearest town. I tried to stay calm. Well, it's fine. We'll be in town soon. You'll be okay. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. Not for me. For you. The air in the car felt suffocating. I kept my eyes on the road, praying for some kind of landmark, some sign of life ahead. But it was just endless blackness and snow. The man shifted in his seat. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him reach into his coat. My heart almost stopped. I imagined a knife, a gun, anything. I gripped the wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. But then he pulled out. Nothing. Just his bare hand, which he rested on his leg. Almost like he wanted me to see him reaching for something, just to scare me. Minutes crawled by like hours. Neither of us spoke again. The only sound was the storm outside and the rhythmic squeak of the wipers. Finally, through the white blur, I saw the faint glow of lights in the distance. The town. Relief flooded me. I pulled into the first gas station I saw and parked under the harsh fluorescent lights. Here we are, I said, forcing my voice to sound casual. The man didn't move at first. Okay. Then, slowly, he turned to me, that same eerie smile on his face. Thank you, he said softly. But remember, you shouldn't have stopped. Before I could respond, he opened the door and stepped out into the snow. He walked away into the darkness beyond the gas station lights, his figure swallowed by the storm until he was gone. I sat there, frozen, unable to move. My heart hammered in my chest as I realized something. When I first pulled over, I had seen his car with the hazard lights on. But when I looked back out onto the road, there was no car, just endless snow. Story 2. Cabin in the Whiteout. Back when I was in college, a close friend of mine, his name was Evan, invited me to spend a weekend with him in his family's winter cabin up in the mountains. It was early February, classes were killing us, and the idea of just escaping to somewhere quiet sounded amazing. The cabin was remote. I mean, really remote. We had to drive nearly 4 hours, the last hour being nothing but winding roads surrounded by tall pines weighed down with snow. By the time we reached it, the sun was setting, and the temperature had already dropped into the teens. The cabin itself was cozy in a rustic way. Wooden beams, a stone fireplace, 2 small bedrooms, and a front porch that looked out into nothing but endless trees and hills covered in white. There was no cell service, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just silence. At first, it was nice. peaceful, even. We built a fire, made some dinner, and played cards while the snow fell quietly outside. But as night went on, the storm picked up. By midnight, it was a full-on whiteout. Heavy snow, wind howling so hard, the windows rattled. So I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep when I heard it. The sound that didn't belong to the storm. Crunch. At first, I thought it was just snow falling from the roof. But then it came again. Crunch. Crunch. Like footsteps pressing down into the fresh snow. I held my breath, listening. The sound circled slowly around the cabin, stopping every so often, then picking up again. I told myself it was probably an animal, a deer, maybe. But deep down, I knew better. I got up and peeked through the blinds. The snow was coming down so hard, I couldn't see more than a few feet, but for a brief second, I swore I saw movement, a shadow gliding past one of the windows. "Evan?" I whispered. He stirred from the other bed. "What? Is someone outside?" He groaned, half asleep. "It's a bear or something. Let's go back to sleep." But I couldn't. I stood, frozen by the window, straining my ears. The crunching came back, this time right outside the wall near me. Then it stopped. We didn't hear anything else for the rest of the night. Eventually, I drifted off, though uneasily. The next morning, I rushed outside. The second the storm let up, the snow was deep, nearly to my knees, but I scanned the ground all around the cabin. There were no tracks, no prints, no sign that anyone or anything had been out there. That should have reassured me, but instead, it unsettled me even more. That night, it happened again. The same steady crunch of footsteps circling the cabin. Only this time, there was more. Tap, tap on the window glass. Soft at first, then harder, as if someone was running their fingernails along the outside. I jumped out of bed and shook Evan awake. "Listen," I hissed. He sat up, his face pale as he heard it too. The footsteps, the tapping, the slow, dragging sound against the wood of the walls. We grabbed the fireplace poker and a heavy flashlight and crept through the cabin, flicking on lights. Every time we looked out a window, there was nothing but swirling snow. No shapes, no figures, no footprints. But the sounds followed us, moving around, staying just out of sight. At one point, Evan swung the flashlight toward the front porch window, and I swear for a split second, I saw a face. Pale, pressed against the glass, wide eyes staring in at us. But when he swung the light back, it was gone. Neither of us slept that night. We sat by the fire, weapons in hand, waiting for something to break through the door. By dawn, the storm cleared again, and again, no prints in the snow. The entire area around the cabin was untouched, as if no one had been there at all. We wanted to leave, but the roads were buried. We were stuck for at least another night. That evening, the cabin grew colder than usual. Even with the fire blazing, the atmosphere felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing down on us. And then it started. Louder this time. Footsteps circling faster, pounding on the walls, scratching on the glass. We barricaded the doors, shut every curtain, and sat huddled in the living room with every light on. Hours passed like that. Then, at some point past midnight, the noises stopped completely. The silence was even worse. That's when Evan whispered, "Do you hear that?" At first, I didn't, but then I caught it. A faint voice, whispering. It was coming from outside the cabin, soft, almost like a chant. We froze. The whispering grew louder, circling us the way the footsteps had. And then, a knock. Not on the front door, not on the windows, but on the bedroom door inside the cabin. We bolted, grabbed our coats, boots half on, and ran out into the freezing snow. I don't know how long we ran, but eventually we found the snow-covered road and followed it until we reached a ranger station by dawn. When we told the ranger what happened, he gave us a strange look and shook his head. "That cabin's been empty for years," he said. "No one's supposed to be staying there." We both insisted we had the key. Evan's family owned it. But when we went back weeks later with his parents, the front door was wide open, the place cold and empty. Inside, in the dust by the fireplace, were two sets of footprints leading in from the snow. One said ours, the other stopping right at the bedroom door. Story 3. Frozen Lake Lights. When I was 16, my group of friends had this stupid tradition every winter. There was a big frozen lake on the edge of our town, surrounded by woods, and once the ice was thick enough, we'd sneak out there at night. No adults, no rules, just us, some flashlights, and the thrill of walking across a frozen sheet of black water in the dark. Looking back, it was reckless. It's the kind of thing you only do when you're young and think nothing can touch you. That night, there were 5 of us, me, my best friend Tyler, a girl named Megan, and 2 other guys from school. The air was freezing, our breaths hanging like smoke as we trudged through knee-high snow to reach the lake. The trees towered above us, their branches heavy with frost, creaking in the wind. When we broke through the tree line, the lake stretched out before us like a sheet of black glass under the pale moonlight. Silent, still, almost too perfect. We laughed nervously, daring each other to step onto the ice first. Tyler, being the brave idiot, stomped out with a flashlight and jumped a couple of times. The ice groaned, but held. Soon enough, we were all out there, our boots squeaking against the frozen surface. The silence was overwhelming. No cars, no houses, no animals, just a whistle of wind across the lake. About 20 minutes in, Megan froze mid-step. "Do you see that?" she whispered. We all followed her gaze down at the ice. At first, I thought it was just her flashlight reflecting weirdly. But then I saw it too. A faint glow beneath the surface, dim at first, like a lantern buried under the water, shifted, moved, almost like it was following us. We all stood, huddled, our lights shining downward. The glow pulsed faintly, then multiplied 2, 3, 4 orbs of pale blue light drifting under the ice. "Must be something in the water," one of the guys muttered, though his voice cracked. But there was no way. The lake was frozen solid. Then the voices started, faint, muffled, as if someone was calling from deep below. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I heard my own name, clear as day, whispered from under the ice. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. Tyler shouted that we should leave, but before we could move, the glowing shapes darted directly beneath us. The ice let out a long, deep crack that echoed across the entire lake. "Don't move," I yelled. We all stood frozen, flashlights trembling in our hands. The glowing light swirled beneath us, faster and faster, as the muffled voices grew louder, overlapping, calling each of our names in broken whispers. "Come down. Join us. Don't leave." The ice groaned, splitting in jagged lines around where we stood. Megan screamed as a thin crack shot right between her boots. She bolted toward the shore. The rest of us had no choice but to follow. But the lights moved with us, gliding under the ice, keeping pace like predators circling prey. The closer we got to the shoreline, the louder the voices became, desperate, angry. One of the guys slipped, his flashlight clattering onto the ice. He scrambled to grab it, but just as his hand touched it, the ice beneath him buckled with a thunderous crack. For a split second, his body dropped, his legs plunging into freezing water. His scream cut through the night. We grabbed his arms and yanked him out, just as a crack sealed itself, the glow beneath the ice fading for a moment, almost like it was swallowing back down. We didn't stop running until we hit the tree line, collapsed in the snow, gasping, our friend shivering violently, his jeans soaked through. When we looked back at the lake, the lights were gone, just black, endless ice under the moon. No one said a word as we dragged ourselves back to town. The next morning, we went back with adults. The lake was frozen smooth. No cracks, no lights, no sign of anything. But here's the part that chills me the most. That friend we pulled out. He swore while he was under. Just for a second, he saw faces in the water. Kale wide-eyed, pressed against the ice from below, mouths open, whispering his name. He moved away a year later, wouldn't talk about it again. The rest of us, we never set foot on that lake again. Not even in the daytime. Because some things are meant to stay buried under the ice. Which of these winter night stories chilled you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.